the dolphin read your mind.
She realized I was a zoophile. I was more or less into sex with dogs. And I hadn't had any, but I had tried. She was masturbating on me. And one time, she actually had a climax. UFOs do seem to have something to do with the sea. And who is in a better position to know what's going on in the sea than the dolphins? There's all kinds of questions we could answer if we could talk to dolphins. That's what was so fascinating, that I, who had made love with a dolphin, should run into this woman. Also, that she was a witch.
So I first heard about Malcolm J Brenner when he was brought up on the podcast.
Man had sex with a dolphin called Dolly for a year and claimed she seduced him.
And that pretty much sums it up. He's mostly known because back in the 70s, he worked at a theme park, he had sex with a dolphin that was there, and he's written a book about it. The book is called Wet Goddess, Recollections of a Dolphin Lover. And in that book, he pretty much goes through the whole story about how it all came to be, why he had sex with a dolphin, how the dolphin sex was, and everything that you need to know. He also filmed a short documentary called Dolphin Lover, which I'll link in the description below. That documentary is basically a summarisation of the book, and he goes through all the details in that documentary as well. But I wanted to find out a little bit more. It's been a long time since he wrote that book, and it's been a long time since he's filmed that documentary. So I emailed him, asked him if he'd like to chat, and he said yes. So here it is. We talk about a lot of things, from the dolphin sex to how intelligent dolphins are, whether they're more intelligent than us. We talk about aliens. We talk about cults and a whole lot of stuff. So we'll jump into it, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, I can hear you, Malcolm. How are you?
Oh, I'm okay this morning.
Okay, good.
A little slow to wake up, but that's normal at my age.
I guess for the audience, would you like to introduce yourself? Who are you?
I'm Malcolm J Brenner. I'm a writer and photographer, and reporter was my trade when I was working. I'm retired now. In 1970, I had a rather fascinating love affair with a female bottlenose dolphin, which most people don't have. And I've been trying to tell people what the dolphins are and what they are up to, possibly, on this planet ever since.
You do have a book, which is probably the book that you're most known for, relating to the dolphin Dolly.
Right.
That book is titled Wet Goddess, Recollections of a Dolphin Lover.
Right. It's as close as I could write to what actually happened to me without getting sued by any of the people that are mentioned in the book, not as themselves, of course, but as mere characters, but are still alive.
Of course. So inspired by true events. And then I guess for anybody who also wants to know the nitty-gritty, dirty details, there's also a short documentary that you told me about, which was called Dolphin Lover.
Right.
And that pretty much summarises the experience.
Well, that's why I made the film Dolphin Lover, because it's like the Cliff Notes version of Wet Goddess. And the only thing that really has been left out of that, because there wasn't enough time or budget, was the fact that I had rather extensive telepathic communications with the dolphin, which is really weird if you think about it, but it turns out I'm not the only guy on the planet who has this particular delusion. This is a real thing. Scientists don't acknowledge it because scientists don't acknowledge about half of what's going on because it's not repeatable in a lab.
Of course, you've had a lot of time to think about and sort of interpret the experience that you had back in the 70s. It wasn't just sex. There was a connection between you and Dolly, and the connection was not just one way. It wasn't just that you fell in love with a dolphin, but Dolly also connected with you as well.
Let's be absolutely clear about one thing.
Yes.
When I first went to Florida Funland, or Florida Land, the real name of the park, Florida Land, I didn't have any idea what dolphins were like. I had read a little bit about them. Everything that happened at the park was Dolly's idea. The dolphin took the initiative in reaching out to me, both personally and sexually. And I think she reached out sexually because of one thing. Dolphins have sex the way humans shake hands. What that tells me is that dolphins attach some meanings to sex that we don't. Most dolphins that get caught are just concerned with getting by in captivity and earning their fish and, keeping their weight up and keeping their masters happy. I think Dolly was something different. I think she was the dolphin equivalent of a scientist.
Okay.
And she was studying her captors, human beings. And she was asking this question: why won't humans shake hands with us? You get it? Shake hands?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm following.
The thing is, I think the dolphins are asking a real question there. And in their society, in their way of life, it's a completely legitimate question. Come on, let's have sex just for fun. Just to get to know you better. Let's have sex. When I came along, the first time I got in the water with her, she wouldn't come near me. And I thought, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with my hands? Just average human hands. And a bunch of thoughts went through my mind about what we humans do with our hands. And one of them, because I was, a 20-year-old male and horny, was that we use our hands in foreplay.
Mm-hmm.
When that thought crossed my mind, the dolphin stopped swimming around, stuck her head out of the water, and looked at me for about a minute. And then she swam right over to me and let me stroke her head. So that was the first time that I got a clue that dolphins can intercept your thoughts.
So in that moment, Dolly the dolphin read your mind.
She realized I was a zoophile.
Okay.
That I might be a good experimental subject for her. I had no designs on a dolphin that time. I was more or less into sex with dogs. And I hadn't had any, but I had tried. And I frankly didn't want to get involved with the dolphin sexually. The dolphin found me irresistible. And every time I went down to the park, her attention was focused on me. At some point, I was able to make conscious contact with Ruby and with Dolly and figure out that, yes, this was the dolphin communicating with me. I thought, this is so crazy, but what else have I got? I'm going to go with it. So I did. And eventually I had to explain to her, in many states, bestiality is a crime, and I could go and be put in a jail or a mental institution for having sex with you. And she said, well, you'd be kind of like in this place then, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I said, yeah, kind of like where you are.
At this point,
Yes.
At this point, how physically were you communicating with the dolphin? Was it with speech, or was it purely just with thought? Was it purely telepathic?
I was communicating with her on all fronts. Dolly became sort of a thing in herself. I just found myself becoming fascinated with her, becoming more attracted to her, especially after I explained or tried to explain human sex to her. Her courtship took on a new dimension. It became very gentle, very erotic. I don't know how I got through to her if it wasn't telepathically, but something changed, and the dolphin began treating me with a newfound respect for my humanness. She was masturbating on me. She was rubbing her genital slit, which is, the opening of her vagina, against me to masturbate, and one time she actually had a climax. I know because, she threw her head out of the water and was looking me right in the eyes as she was masturbating on my foot. She was put up in the main pool with 5 male dolphins. She still preferred me.
Why do you think that was?
Because I was an interesting subject. and because she is deciding she actually liked me.
Fair enough. You know, we've established that Dolly particularly and dolphins in general have far superior intelligence to what the average person understands or is willing to believe. Do you think Dolly was especially intelligent, or do you and you know, maybe the other dolphins in the enclosure were not as as not as developed mentally as maybe Dolly was, or was it purely just that Dolly maybe had a different mindset when it came to humans?
I think she had a different mindset. Think about it for a second, okay? For 2 million years, we here on the land have been chipping rocks, and now we're at the point of building microcircuits.
Mm-hmm.
The dolphins have been in the same form, in the same place, for 12 million years. They haven't changed noticeably. They reached a level of perfection and adaptation to their environment 12 million years ago. I think if the dolphins have any kind of continuity, if they have any kind of history, if they have any kind of way of remembering things and passing them on to their children, it's vital that we contact them, learn how to communicate with them, because I think they've seen a lot of Earth's past that we just weren't here for. And they may know some things that have happened on this planet or to this planet that we just don't know about. Many UFOs, it turns out, like the ones reported in the Tic Tac case, are seen over or entering or leaving the ocean. Or, you know, they're dripping wet when they land in your backyard. Just kidding. UFOs do seem to have something to do with the sea. And who is in a better position to know what's going on in the sea than the dolphins? So whether these things have underwater bases, whether they're just using our planet as a kind of transit zone, or, you know, need to cool down their hyperflux engines or whatever in the ocean, I don't know, but I'll bet the dolphins do.
Maybe.
And I'll bet they've had a much longer association with whoever is running the UFOs than we have, because they've been here longer. There's all kinds of questions we can answer if we could talk to dolphins.
And so, if, you know, dolphins are as intelligent and as advanced as that, then why have they not tried to let us know? Or have they tried to let us know and we simply just can't understand? You know, it's the equivalent of us trying to talk to a bug. Or is it purely that most people just aren't interested or don't have that wherewithal to try and communicate with the dolphins?
I think it's just that we live in two very different realms. Sound in the water does not get into your ears very easily, and the same way sound in the air doesn't bridge the air-water barrier. It's called impedance mismatch. But we have all kinds of creatures on this planet with brains as big or bigger than our own that are communicating in ways we don't understand. This is like we don't have one pinnacle of intelligence on this planet, human beings. We have two, human beings and dolphins. And I think they've spent the last 12 million years not figuring out how to chip rocks or build integrated circuits, because they don't do that. They've spent the last 12 million years figuring out how to use their big brains and what they can do with them. And some of those things are very, very surprising to science. Because according to my experience, if it wants to, a dolphin can get in your head like a hot knife going through butter and just rummage around in there until it finds something that interests it. The first time I ever felt contacted by the dolphin, I didn't know what was going on. But I was out at the beach one evening with a couple of friends. I was trying to roll a joint under very difficult conditions. I just met the dolphin a few days earlier. I could look down at my hands, and what I saw was these things like crabs. They appear like crabs to the dolphins because they've got all these fingers. And there were these two crab-like things going about the strange task of trying to roll this really thin piece of something around this green herb stuff. And I was really highly motivated and all that. And it was really like somebody else was using my eyes as remote sensing cameras. I didn't know who, but that was the first time that I had the impression of something else being in my head that wasn't me. And that was to go on for the duration of our relationship. And I just think the majority of dolphins aren't any more interested in communicating with us than we are with them. We're just the latest challenge to the dolphins' dominance of the oceans.
I don't know if there's anything else that you want to touch on when it comes to the minds of the dolphins. I was going to move on to your other book. So you have it's a 2012 book titled "Growing Up in the Orgone Box: Secrets of a Righteous Childhood," and in your words, it's about growing up with parents who have an illogical belief in a bizarre pseudo-scientific quasi-cult.
Yeah. Wilhelm Reich was a psychiatrist from the Freudian school, old school, Vienna. He became very interested, preoccupied, you might say, with human sexuality, and came to think he'd discovered a new energy source he called orgone, which was life energy, biological energy. Something that science has been looking for from about the 16th century onward, hasn't found yet. There is no specifically biological energy. Let me put you in my place for a minute.
Yep.
I'm 5 years old. My parents are taking me to the psychiatrist because I had a very difficult birth. My mother's cervix clamped down around my forehead as I was being born. She went into a spasm. And my father said that when I came out, I was blue from the middle of my forehead to the top of my head because, wow. Yeah. And this psychiatrist, who is a close associate of Dr. Reich's, his name was Dr. Duval, Dr. Alan Duval, I think.
Albert,
yeah, whatever. Long time. I had a lot of tension from that. Unfortunately, Dr. Duval just made it worse. He was a pedophile. He was a sadist. He tortured the kids that were sent to him for therapy. And I've talked to several of them. They all tell the same story of being tortured by Dr. Duval, of him threatening them into silence, of them telling their parents anyway, and not being believed. And this is where the cult-like aspects of the followers of Wilhelm Reich begin to emerge. My parents were so wrapped up in this belief system that they just, when I told them what Dr. Duval was doing to me, they said, well, honey, it's just part of the therapy. You just have to endure it. That was just causing me pain. I'm in a soundproof room with this guy. The door is locked. I'm lying on the couch, naked. I'm 5 years old. This man, and my parents know this, has complete control over my body. He can do anything he wants to it. Then, when the guy went deeper and performed fellatio on me and threatened to bite off my penis if I told anybody about it, I told both my parents. And they both said, oh, no, that isn't really happening. That can't be true. He's a doctor. He's treating you. You're not experiencing what you're really experiencing. Gaslighting. Here's the dirty story behind that, and this is a dirty story. The reason they were interested in this whole thing was my mother was anorgasmic. She couldn't have an orgasm. She had been molested when she was very, very young. And as a consequence of that, two things. She couldn't have an orgasm, and she hated all men. She hated my father. I'm pretty sure she hated me because she never treated me with any more consideration than you would give the average slave. My mother could have not been less mother-like.
And the experience that you had with Dr. Duval,
Mm-hmm.
Do you directly relate that to your sort of like sexual desires later on in life, in your teens and early 20s?
It's just personal opinion, but I believe zoophiles are made, not born. Other zoophiles disagree with me. But I believe there has to be something pretty terrible happen to you early in life while your sexuality is still in its infantile or childlike form that makes you lose all trust and all interest in human sexual partners. And once you do that, animals start looking pretty good. Yeah, I think that Dr. Duval, combined with the fact that my mother herself was the worst bully I ever met, and I mean that most sincerely, bigger than the guys at school because I had to live with her 24/7. It made for a very bad connection to other human beings. And that's what I feel. Also, there was something else which I didn't figure out until very recently. It's known now that environmental influences can change your genes. They change which genes are turned on and which genes are turned off, which ones are responding and which ones aren't. I think that the pain and suffering I endured as a child turned off the genes in my body that produce endocannabinoids. I don't think my body produces endocannabinoids, and I don't think it ever did. I think that function, it got really stepped on as a child. And as a result of that, I went through childhood with this painfully intense appreciation of reality all around me. I just couldn't escape it. What pot does for me is it makes me able to laugh at myself. I don't take myself so seriously. And what I was completely unable to do at that time was see myself from an outside perspective or laugh at myself. I took life very seriously, more seriously than the adults around me did. And my life was very tense and stress-filled. The bullies at school, my mother at home, I had terrible nightmares. I was, practically a poster child for abused children, except that the concept of abused children really didn't exist in those days. To be abused, you had to be black and blue with a couple of broken legs,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to talk about aliens. So you...
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so you mentioned... Or I want you to talk about aliens more than anything.
Well, this was what got me interested in dolphins originally, because as a child, I read a lot of science fiction. It was almost the only stuff I read. But I got really into this whole thing of, are there aliens out there, and could they possibly be more reasonable than my parents? A purely rational analysis of what people are encountering with UFOs suggests that that the explanation that they're just from another planet with a little different technology may be way too simple. They may be something from another world or dimension, if you want. And I use the phrase dimension quite specifically. Most people don't really realize what it means. We live in what we commonly call a three-dimensional world because we have height, width, and depth. And to those, we have to throw in a fourth dimension, which is time, because you need 4 points to analyze an event in space, where it is objectively and what time it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 dimensions. You need, in other words, 4 reference points to locate an object in this universe. You go to another universe, you might need 5 or 6 or 7 reference points. That's what we mean by more dimensions. The way UFOs appear and disappear in our world, the fact that they can apparently travel at supersonic speeds with no shockwave, it all suggests that when they appear in our world and they're still flying around, they are like a projection. I think there's a very good chance that some UFOs are like that. They are not just inhabitants of another world, but another dimension. Now, what happened to me is I was out west for a number of years doing reporting out there, mainly on the Navajo tribe. And I met a woman in Farmington who sort of accidentally revealed to me one evening that she had had this bizarre UFO experience. And the fact that we were supposed to get married 2 weeks later made it kind of a surprise. So, yeah, this was my second wife. And the experience she had was waking up one night and finding a man in a silver suit standing in her room. And she couldn't explain this, but he was injured. He had blood on his face. And silently, he begged her to get up. He couldn't speak. And she did get up, and he took her by the hand and led her through the dark woods to a crashed spaceship, which resembled a giant egg. And inside were two other crewmen, one of which was dead and the other which was needed her help to move some wreckage off of him so he could get out. And she helped the spaceman do this. The beings were very humanoid looking. And the crewman died anyhow, and the next day she remembered nothing. Until she went for a walk in the woods that evening. And she came upon the spaceship, which she didn't have any memory of having seen before. And this time, the surviving alien took her inside and ran her through some kind of a brain scan machine, and afterwards they could communicate. She couldn't tell me whether they were communicating in his language or hers, but they were able to communicate. And the book is called Melchior, An Interstellar Affair. I had the weird experience of being a reporter and having to not report on, but kind of try to figure out what had really happened to her. Was this all just a story out of her imagination, or were there parts of it that I could actually prove? And every time I came to a decision point where one path would branch off and say, no, nothing happened, and the other path would branch off and say, yeah, this happened. Every time, the decision fell her way. In other words, I could not disprove her story, but I couldn't prove it either. She said that the aliens said, yeah, they tracked me here. They know I'm here. They're looking for me. They don't want me. They want the ship. And the reason they wanted the ship was because of the technology.
Right.
But the ship was no good to them without the alien to show them how it worked. So they really wanted to capture the alien alive. And the alien was under standing orders, which apparently applied to all his species, that if he was to be captured on Earth, he was first of all to disable the ship so it couldn't be used by anyone, and then to kill himself so they couldn't torture him and get the secrets of the ship. So the alien was looking at either getting off the planet or killing himself. Those were his two choices. And my ex-wife decided to help him. Screw those government guys. We'll get you off here. And she did this because she was able to interface with the ship, which was an artificial intelligence in itself, badly wounded at that point, but still functioning. And the ship gave her directions about how to repair it. Again, this all sounds very improbable, but the memories of this had been repressed deliberately. To watch them come up in her was shocking. I didn't know what was going on. Suddenly, she would just sit down and start to weep, and I would step away and give her some space, and then I'd ask her what was going on. She said, I just remembered this and such about the experience. And all throughout our relationship, our marriage, memories like this would bubble up. So I've written it up as a novel. I've added some little bits that I think are probably likely, but are totally fictitious. And I'm passing it off again as a novel. See, all three of the books I write are based on one principle, okay? If you wrote this as fiction, nobody would believe it. But you've got to write it as fiction because nobody will believe it as fact either.
Right.
I only write about stuff that has really happened to me. So, Wet Goddess, growing up in the Orgone Box, Melchior, they're all true stories out of my life.
There's quite a few parallels, it seems, between Wet Goddess and Melchior in terms of...
Yeah, there are. That's what was so fascinating, that I, who had made love with a dolphin, should run into this woman in Farmington, New Mexico, which is not, San Francisco. It's a rather straight little town. Mm-hmm. Also, that she was a witch, because I was practicing Wicca at the time. And, we could go on for an hour or two about that, too, or about my career as a reporter on the Navajo Reservation. But she seemed like the right person in the right place at the right time, so I married her. I still don't think that was a mistake. I think if her husband had never shown back up, we might still be together. But, didn't work out that way. So I think everything feeds back into itself. Things I learn about one subject feed into many others, I'm almost 70. And really, I feel like the world is just starting to open up to me. I'm not going to be here for that much longer. How's that for a rollout?
Well, I hope that you do manage to finish that book. I hope that you do complete your 4. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you would like to get out there? Is there any last messages or anything that you want people to know?
Yeah. If nobody ever asked me, did you do it in the blowhole? That would be fine with me. Dolphins, that's their nostrils, baby. Dolphins get very angry with you if you fuck around with their nostrils. There are records of blowhole sex, but only between consenting males.
Okay. We'll have that on record. It doesn't go in the blowhole. They have a slit, and that's where it goes.
It's a very sensitive slit.
Yeah.
As you can imagine.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking your time out. I wish you all the best. I really appreciate you coming on the Curios Cast.
By the way, you might want to see the.
I was wondering about that. Yeah, what does that say? God hates chimps who love dolphins.
Yes, it's true. It's true. God does hate chimps who love dolphins.
That is brilliant.
So have a good day, Tom.
You too. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.
And anytime you want some existential questions answered, I'm the guy who'll tell you what you want to hear.
Brilliant. So, thank you. Bye-bye. If you watched all that, I hope you enjoyed. It was not what I expected, and I'm sure it's not what you expected either. If you did stick around, please give the video a like, and feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. There's going to be lots more interviews like this coming up from interesting people. I want to keep reaching out to bigger and bigger people as we go along, and turn this into a regular thing. So please subscribe if you like this kind of content. There's an even longer version of this interview that I've linked in the description below if you want to watch the entire version. It's about an hour long, and we talk about quite a few more interesting things that just didn't make the cut for this slightly shorter version here. So if you enjoyed that interview and you want to hear even more of Malcolm's story, then go in the description and you'll see a link there so you can listen to the full hour. Thanks for watching.